Peggle. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ferret64 with me, your host, Yemmy the Ferret. Ferret64 is of course the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, game reviews, and so much more. And yeah, we put this out every week, so if you want your weekly fix of video game stuff, go ahead and hit the subscribe button or the follow button on Spotify or wherever you are. Also, don't forget that you can also rate the podcast on Spotify now out of 5 stars. You can comment on Spotify as well if you so desire. Or if you want to head over to the YouTube version, there's a video version of the podcast that actually shows me on the camera. If you want to head over there and watch the podcast, you can do that as well. I would also appreciate a like if you so desire. Of course, after you've finished through the podcast and made sure that it's worthy of a like, of course. I hope you're having a good week, a good day, a good whatever. And if you're not having a good one, I hope that I can maybe make your day a little bit better by giving you some video game stuff to think about for a little bit. Let's go ahead and start off with the first part of the show, which is going to be, what have I been playing this past week? Okay, first thing for me to talk about is LEGO Horizon Adventures, which came out on Thursday this past week. And although I haven't dived too deep into it, I feel pretty confident that I can talk about it a little bit here at least. And the reason for that is because, well, let me rewind that. The game is a LEGO game, obviously, so you kind of know what you're in for going into it. It's going to be a bit easier, it's going to be a bit more playful, obviously things are going to be goofy and wacky and off the walls. And I expressed this concern before the game came out, and I said, well, Horizon as a franchise, it has 2 games, obviously, and a VR game as well, which I guess is technically 3 games. I don't know if it's ever been, like, goofy. Like, there's been fun moments, like, in terms of story, like, what's happening. Like, there's been, like, fun, jovial moments. But it's always, for me, and through my playthroughs of both of the games, and as much as I played through of the Forbidden West, it's obviously a very serious and, like, I don't know. There's elements of, like, just the world being depressed and sad because of everything that's going on, right? And when you translate this over to the LEGO structure with its over-the-top goofiness and craziness, and you have the juxtaposition of having the original voice actors voicing their characters, but in a fun and jovial way, it just really like the game and the themes of Horizon just clash so hard with the LEGO branding. And even though this game looks fantastic, it plays pretty well, but it looks fantastic. Everything's made out of LEGO, which is one of the things that I love about the game. The look of the game is amazing. It really does look like someone built this world out of LEGO. And, like, you know, obviously the backdrops are great too, and the music is really fun. And the character animations, they look, it almost looks like the LEGO movie at times because, you know, it's just in that nature. But once you start progressing with the story, and it's just kind of like, oh, we're shooting, well, not shooting, but, you know, we're firing arrows at the robots, and we're learning more about the LEGO world, and you're rebuilding these structures for people, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we're riding a roller coaster, or it's like, okay, now I'm firing bananas from my bow instead of regular, something like that. It just doesn't really work for me in this context. Like a normal LEGO game where they're parodying something like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or something like that, those 2 franchises, like even though Lord of the Rings is obviously a bit more serious of a tone than any of those other ones, I feel like, you know, Star Wars is obviously designed for a younger audience. It's obviously a bit more, a bit less serious at times, obviously, and I think that works well with the LEGO branding. Lord of the Rings, you can work within that to kind of make it a bit more goofy, put some goofy things in there, put some slapstick in there. But the problem is that Horizon has never really been that goofy franchise, in the moments that are kind of goofy are far in few and far and in between. So when you have, every other line from the character being like a quippy thing or like a funny word or something like that, and it's coming from the same voice actors as Aloy, it just doesn't rub me the right way. And it might be because, hey, I'm old. I'm older, okay? I'm playing this game as, a 30-plus-year-old person. I can say plus now because I'm 31. And I mean, maybe that's why I'm not a kid anymore, or I haven't been a kid for quite some time. And if you're a kid and you're playing this, you're obviously not going to know the rest of the Horizon Adventure because it might be the first Lego, it might be the first Horizon game. This Lego Horizon Adventures might be the first, Horizon game that you ever play. So it's like I don't know any of this, so it's fine for me because I don't know any of this. But I think a majority of people who want to play this game have played the other games, and it might be just a weird situation where the tone of the Horizon games just clashes pretty hard with the goofy nature of a Lego game. That being said, it's also pretty one note for a Lego game as well. And my main problem is just the world you explore and the combat and stuff like that. It's just very one note. And I mean, obviously, Lego games have never been super crazy with their mechanics. Like, I think the game that went a bit off the wall and totally like redesigned how Lego works was like it was, I think, the Lord of the Rings game, because you could pick up items, you could craft items, you could use multiple items with characters. So that was like the most intricate working of a Lego game yet. And yet now we're back to a very bare bones basic version of a Lego game where it's like Aloy can shoot her arrows, this guy can swing his sword, this guy has a spear. It's just one of those things where it's like everyone has like one thing that they can do now, and of course they can build or whatever, but still it's like, what are we doing here? Like this is just so dumbed down. It's almost not fun, which is a problem for me because longevity for games really does hinge on, is it fun? Am I enjoying the experience? Am I getting something out of the experience? And something like this that is probably going to be relatively short, all things considered, but even if it does have like a 6 to 7 hour runtime, if I'm just kind of like dragging my feet through the entire experience, it's gonna feel like a lot longer, and I could drop off of it. There's other experiences that I've played this year that they might be a bit goofy or wacky or off the wall, and I might get a bit frustrated with them here and there. But in the end, if it's still fun and engaging and feels worthwhile for me to keep going, then yeah, I will keep going. And in the end, I usually end up enjoying those games even more because it gave me a bit of a challenge, or it gave me a bit of something to work towards, or whatever. A good example is that game that came out early this year called Arctic Eggs. It was like a $10 Steam game where you fry eggs and stuff in a pan. And even though there were sections that I got a bit frustrated with it, and I was getting a bit angry, I guess. It wasn't an angry like, oh, this is so unfair. It was an angry like, I can't believe I'm not getting this. This is difficult. And that was the game. Yeah, you fried eggs and stuff in a pan. And I thought that it was like just a really bizarre, off the wall kind of thing, but it really worked. And even though that's like a 4-hour runtime of a game at most, it really felt worth it to get through the experience and get to the end because the rest of the game was so engaging, so fun, so unique. With Lego Adventures, to wrap this back around, it really does just feel like we've reverted back to an earlier stage in Lego's history where the characters can't really do too much other than their basic qualities. And yeah, sure, there's voice acting and the animations are fantastic and whatever. It just feels so dumbed down for no good reason other than, hey, it's a kid's game. Is it a kid's game or is it a baby game? That's what I'm trying to decide right now, because a kid's game can be at least engaging, right? But a baby game holds your hand, doesn't let you die, all those different things. And if you look at Lego Horizons, it holds your hand every step of the way. It's very easy, very simple. If you die, you literally respawn without losing any studs now, which is like, hello, that's like the basic like entry level for a Lego game. And then also the other thing that's very annoying to me is the levels are very segmented. You go through an area and you load in like this, I would say, relatively small part of the map, and then you immediately move on to the next part and has to load in the next part. And even though it's pretty fast on the PS5, it's still just very weird that you cut the black and then you go and you revert in and you fade in and you're in a new part of the map, and it's like, I don't understand why we need to do this. Like, these levels aren't really that long. I feel like they could just flow from one end to the other with maybe a few exceptions. So the fact that you are going through a small section of map, there's a couple interactable things there, maybe a few treasure chests to find with studs in them, or maybe a gold brick to earn in this area. The fact that you need to black out and then fade back in to load the next area is just so bizarre to me. It is very bizarre to me. I don't understand why we can't just go from one end of the map to the other. Even earlier Lego games, I'm thinking back to when we played Indiana Jones this past year. There wasn't really a fade to black, fade out, fade in kind of thing. You just kind of like went from section to section, and you could backtrack a bit if you needed to. So the fact that this game has also reverted in that way as well, like something that wasn't really in any other Lego game. Like, even Lego Dimensions didn't have something like this, where it's like, okay, you're going to the next section, let's fade out. And it's just those small things that are annoying me. That's like, this is really just ruining the experience. Because when you first boot up the game, it's like, whoa, this looks cool. I'm playing around with Aloy. Her movements are really kind of like stiff, but it's like in a Lego, playful Lego kind of way, and it looks really good. Almost looks like a movie. And then the gameplay itself is just bare bones. The level design is bare bones. It has those weird fade in and fade out moments that is just so immersion breaking, and it also breaks up like the just the flow of the game as well. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I cannot recommend this. And I mean, it's getting very high praises, obviously, and I don't, maybe it's because I'm not far enough into the game yet, but my main issue right now is like the core stuff that they are teaching me, the core things that we are doing is just not there. It's not even as engaging as a lot of the earlier Lego games, which I have played a couple of those in the past year, like the Lego Star Wars original trilogy and Lego Indiana Jones. So it's one of those things where it's like, and Lego Marvel Superheroes. I played that one, and those games, even though they are still kids games and they still can be a bit boring at times, they do have engaging parts, engaging things. It has, of course, millions of references for you to oogle over as well, especially in that original Lego Marvel game. And with Lego Horizon, it's like, yeah, like, okay, we got Aloy, we got Rost, we got whoever. And obviously they twist around the story from the game. So, like, you start off as Aloy, and she's, of course, born to the mountain and whatever. But instead of going back to the village right away, you gotta like detour off and save someone, and then come back and blah blah blah. So it does detour from the base game like the base game itself, but it's mostly following along the same story. So even like that, like the story's not really super engaging because it's kind of like, okay, we've kind of seen this stuff before. So yeah, I really can't recommend this one, and I wish that I could, because I went into this game going, yep, it looks great. I'm hoping that they really make it Horizon coded. And even though I was concerned about the tone of the game going into it, I was like, well, maybe I can overlook that stuff if the game is good enough. And right now, the game is just not good enough for me personally. And that might mean that if you are like me and you're a person who's played the Horizon series and you're a person who is older, that might mean you too, where it's like, okay, you also aren't going to like this because of these reasons that I've already talked about in length. So take that with what you will, but for me personally, it's an I would not recommend this right now. Maybe if you have a younger kid to play with, or if you have a child, who is earlier in their gaming career, I would say yeah. But if you have like a teenager and up, I would say no. Even if they're the biggest fan of Horizon ever, I feel like this would be just kind of like maybe it would be kind of cute for them, obviously, but it's still like, even for me, like I've played through the first game entirely for the platinum, and I've done the VR game, and I'm working. I mean, I was working through the Forbidden West when it first came out, and I kind of dropped off of that one. But still, I played a fair amount of this Halo series, not Halo, Horizon series, and this game just is not speaking to me. And I will go back and I will probably play through the whole thing if I don't have other things to play. But right now, I'm also playing through Mario and Luigi, and we're playing Black Ops 6 almost every night. And we're doing, and that's not to say that I would rather be playing this than Black Ops 6 with my friends. No, but that's just the thing. Like other things are getting in the way. There's even older games that I'm playing that I would rather be playing over Lego. So I'm kind of like skirting away from it, which kind of tells you that I probably won't be finishing it, but. I'm gonna try at least. December is usually my big month to try and finish off shorter experiences that I've been working through, or ones that I do want to finish that are longer. Like last year, I started to really blitz through Armored Core in December and Final Fantasy 6, whichever one came out last year, 15. I really started to like go through those games. Like I did say blitz through them, but I was taking my time with them as needed. And I did end up getting them done before my top 10 list came out in January. So December is usually my big month to just kind of like get the wheels going. Let's finish up some of these games that have been sitting here. I am in a bit of a gaming slump right now in terms of I just haven't really been beating anything, or I actually wanted to play anything new right now. I've been kind of stuck on Black Ops 6 here, and whatever I've been doing on stream. And I have been in like November. I feel like November usually is like a gaming slump for me, where it's like, okay, we're kind of we're either working through some longer games, or I'm just like not feeling it. And those things can happen, and I feel like if I force myself to play through something when I'm in a bit of a slump that I don't want to play, obviously I'm going to have a bit more of a negative response to it. So I try to maybe I'll go through like a level or two of Horizon and be like, okay, I don't want to force myself to play anymore if I'm not, because I'm not like enjoying it. Or, same thing happened with like the Astrobot newest speedrun, where it's like I liked it, but I'm not going to force myself to try and get the best time because, I'm just not like in that headspace to be gaming right now. And I am coming back around, but there are moments where it's like I'm playing something and it's been like an hour and I go, okay, well, I'm done with this. And like my brain's like, yeah, you don't want to play this anymore. And it's like, even though I'm enjoying it, it's like, I can't, if I like I said, if I force myself, it's going to really negatively impact the game, because then I really start to like, drag my feet through it. I know I've used that before, but it does happen like that. So, for the most part, we are still playing games, so it's not like I'm completely dead in the water on this thing. But it is one of those things that does affect my ability to finish things off. But usually, once December starts up, I kind of get back into a groove, because I get back into that mindset that I just said, where it's like I gotta get some of these things done. I spent money on these games. I need to try and at least finish them. And I did try to finish. I talked about it a couple weeks ago, I think, but I did try and get through Stellar Blade, and I don't know if it was because of my gaming drought that I was not enjoying it, but that also it felt like it started my gaming drought, because I was so excited to try and get through more of that game, and it was just not vibing with me. So maybe that's what started my drought. So I just need a really good game to hold me in place, and I think I did find that game, because I talked about it last week. I've been playing Mario and Luigi Brothership, and I actually stopped playing it almost entirely last week for no good reason, in all honesty. But I started playing it again yesterday, and I played for like 3 hours straight. I was having so much fun with it. There was an island that I was doing that, what was it called? Like the Flower Petal Island. It was one where you had like these flowers you could springboard off of and twist around, and you got a new ability where you could, your brothers could turn into a UFO and get over gaps, which is kind of goofy. That island was a bit not as engaging as a lot of the other ones, but once I got to the lighthouse and I was doing that stuff, I got really back into it. So that was a game that kind of got me to come back around, and and start enjoying my time again with video games. I don't really want to talk about Mario and Luigi Brothership this week simply because I haven't played. Like I said, I haven't played like almost anything at all since last time, so I don't really have anything new to report. But I think I'll definitely be able to. I said this last week. I was like, oh, I'll try to finish up this week. Yeah, it didn't really work out that way. But I'm gonna play it at my own leisure, and we'll see where I'm at next week, and maybe I'll have more to talk about. Okay, next up is a game called Deathnote Killer Within. This was a free PlayStation Plus game, and I kind of went into it knowing, like, yeah, this is probably not going to work for me, because, one, I've never seen the Deathnote anime. Like, I know what it's about, and I know some of the interworkings of it. I watched the Netflix movie, which obviously some people would say is a sin. But I watched the Deathnote movie a long time ago when it first came out. William Dafoe played the demon in it, which I thought was kind of fun. And obviously, as a non-Deathnote fan, or even a person who had watched the anime before that, I found some enjoyment in it, but obviously I understand where criticism would come for that movie, and I'm not going to sit here and defend that movie because I don't know anything that I'm talking about. But what I will talk about is Deathnote Killer Within, which is a video game that I played. And this is the most straightforward Among Us clone that I've really ever played. Even though they do twist it around a little bit with the Deathnote IP, it's still very much like Among Us. So essentially the differences are that, yes, you are going around and you're completing tasks on a map, and you're obviously doing these things with other people, and there's obviously someone who is trying to kill you. But the difference comes where, like, the person who's trying to kill you needs help from a third party, which is a secret agent who is in the detective ranks, trying to get the names of the detectives so that you can write them in the death note if you're the killer. So essentially, you can't just go up to someone and press X and stab them like in Among Us. You have to get their ID, and then you have to bring the ID to the drop-off point or whatever. You have to trade it with the person who has a death note, and then you can write in the death note the person's name, and they'll die. And after that, it's a big thing of like, okay, who saw the person last and who was around the person, and you have this like notebook that you can scribble down writings in, like who you've seen, and people who are on your team can pick up the notebook and they can use that to determine like who saw them last or whatever. And of course, if your ID is stolen, people can go, "Hey, my ID was stolen, and you were near me when I lost my ID," and stuff like that. So there's plenty of things that kind of differentiate from Among Us, but it just kind of boils down to Among Us with more annoying mechanics, in all honesty, because while I was playing it in like the 5 or so matches that I played, it was just kind of like more annoying than it needed to be. It was more drawn out than it needed to be, and in the end, I just felt like, yeah, it's probably gonna stick around for like a month or so, maybe not even. I honestly haven't heard anyone talking about this game at all, so it's like, what's the point of me even talking about it here other than I played it and it's new, right? And I feel like if you do like the Deathnote IP, this will be probably a pretty fun time for you because it does work in that universe a bit, right? But of course it is just like a Among Us kind of thing, and that kind of had its torch and carried it all the way through the pandemic years, and I feel like even now, like, Among Us is still like the top of these kind of games where it's like it's like a mystery killer kind of thing, and plenty of studios have tried to capitalize on that. There's been plenty of games. There was even a PlayStation Plus game that was released, I think it was like last year on PlayStation Plus, where it was like what was it, like Mystery Inc. or something? That's Scooby-Doo. I forget what exactly it was called, but it was another game like Among Us where you went around investigating and doing tasks, and then someone would be the killer. And this Deathnote game kind of mirrors that game that I can't remember the name of right now. It kind of mirrors that in the way where it's like you're doing detective work, and someone is inside of that organization trying to sabotage them. Actually, I think it was on Epic Game Store, free on Epic Game Store. It might have been free last week. Yeah, Deceive Inc. So I was kind of right. Mystery Inc., Deceive Inc. But yeah, this Deceive Inc. game was also on PlayStation Plus last year. It was recently free on Epic Game Store, and I remember that game being very closely related to Among Us, but also now it's very closely resonating with this Death Note Killer Within game. So there's two very similar games that are feeding off of that Among Us system. And even though Among Us doesn't own that game, that genre doesn't own that, it was the one that popularized it, and it's going to be the one that most people go to. Even if you love the Death Note IP, I don't think the player base is going to be very strong in this game. Even when I was playing it, there was only like 5 or so active servers that people could join into. And maybe it was just the time of day. I don't know. But, I joined a server. I mean, the people were very nice. Like, the people who I was playing with, it wasn't as, like, I don't want to say toxic, but it wasn't as crazy as, like, an Among Us server can get. Because I don't think kids are playing Death Note Killer Within. I don't think little kids are. And even if there's a little kid, I think that it's like 1 out of a million, right? So you have older people playing this, people who like the Death Note IP, so they're playing this, and I had some fun conversations with people, and we kind of talked about Death Note, and like I was kind of being like a big time YouTuber, not really big time. I was doing a little bit of research for what I'm about to talk about here, and I was just talking to people about the IP and talking to them about the Death Note series, and they kind of did some back and forth with me. And obviously, I don't have the kind of personality I'm not like Video Game Donkey or those people who do like these long, deep things with like Second Life and stuff like that, where they talk to random people and strangers and stuff like that and talk to them. Like, it was just like very surface level things like, oh, what do you like about Death Note? Or, ooh, how does this game kind of relate to Death Note? And really, it was very surface level things for them in general, where it's like, oh, it's the characters, it's the the city that you're in, it's the little demon guy who is part of the Death Note. Like there's these little like Easter eggs and obviously some more forefront things that link to Death Note. But a lot of people were saying like, yeah, it's Death Note coded, but it's not like a Death Note exclusive game. Like like even if you are the person with the Death Note, it's not like as engaging as the anime, or it's not as engaging as a game that would be based off of the anime, where you could actually go around and they wanted something a bit grander than what they got here. And that was obviously that was just a handful of people that I talked to. It's not the consensus for the entire Death Note community, but for the people that I talked to personally while I was playing the game, they said that like, yeah, it's a good surface level Death Note game, but it's not what they wanted. They wanted like a full-fledged adventure, which they could obviously get in the future. Like this is obviously a stepping stone on the way for I'm pretty sure this is like the first Death Note game, so it could just be a stepping note in the line of Death Note games. But but people are kind of wanting more from the IP in terms of video games, where it's like, okay, you can actually do what you want to do with a Death Note, right? So there's that. For the most part, it's fine, but it's nothing that I would go back to. I think I even gave it like a 2.5 out of 5. Because it's just one of those things where it's like it's just a more complicated Among Us. Like not even like complicated, it's just kind of more annoying in terms of complication than Among Us. And even though it's fine, it's just nothing that I'm going to play. And after what I played, it just doesn't seem like the game is going to have any longevity to it. It just seems like it's going to be a one and done kind of thing, where it's on PlayStation Plus for a month. People play it maybe once or twice. Maybe they get a couple trophies and then they jump off of it. And I don't think the trophies are too difficult in general. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't feel like wasting my time playing more of this. I mean, I won as the detectives, and I almost won as the killer. And I felt like, yeah, that's kind of like I finished the game kind of thing. Like, because what else are you going to do? I won a game and I almost won a game. And I just feel like at this point I'm not going to get any closer than that, because I'm not necessarily good at Among Us type games. And obviously it's a bit more difficult to play these kind of games when you're not playing with friends, because Joe Schmo, who I'm talking to on voice chat through the PlayStation 5 controller, by the way, so it's all compressed and crunched. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know what I'm normally like. So when someone accuses you of something and you're completely innocent, you don't really know how to defend yourself, because it's like they don't know you. They haven't played games with you before. So it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, the social aspect isn't like super great for me either, because none of my who's gonna want to play this game with me? Greedy Waffles, Callus, like no one's gonna want to play Death Note. I'm not, and honestly, I wouldn't invite them to play this game, because I know it's gonna be a one and done game, right? And even though we could probably have fun with maybe a round or two, I think that the consensus would be, and this is obviously I am speaking for other people, but I think the consensus would be most likely like, yep, that was like a good maybe hour of playing, and we're kind of done with this, right? So that's why, one, I didn't invite other people to play with me, and two, I didn't want to like push people to play with me because I kind of knew going into it like, yeah, it's probably just gonna be a one and done for me. I'm gonna get a win here, a win there, and I'm gonna move on. And that's exactly what happened. But like I said, if you're a fan of Deathnote, it does have some stuff in there for you, and I'm sure that I'm sure there's probably people who swear by this game and they love the game, and they would probably give it a 5 out of 5. I'm not one of those people, and I did not talk to one of those people either, so it's hard for me to believe this made-up story that I just made up in my mind. But if you want to check it out, it is on PlayStation Plus right now for no additional cost, and it is also available on Steam if you want to buy it on Steam. I don't know if it's on any other platforms at this point, but there you go. The next game I want to talk about is called Galaxy Burger. Galaxy Burger. This is a game that I picked up last week, and I kind of forgot to play it. But if you like games where you're building burgers and you're running a fast food joint, but it's not like super intricate like a simulation type game, this is a game for you. It definitely harkens back to the SpongeBob games that I used to play, and I think Callus recently played one called Employee of the Month, which is kind of similar. There's also a tablet game that it kind of reminds me of with SpongeBob, and you're making orders and stuff like that for people as fast as you can. Galaxy Burger is very similar to that, where you are building burgers for people. They order a burger and you build the burger for them, and there's also like refreshments like drinks that you can pour, and there's a fry vat for fries and onion rings and mozzarella balls and stuff like that. There are plenty of things to cook and use in this game, and I think that it's a very fun time, and it's also a very chill time. You might go, what, a chill time for a game where you're combining ingredients to cook things as fast as you can? Well, hold on there, Pony Man. It's actually a very chill game because there's no constraints. There's no time limit. The customers will wait as long as they need to wait for. And sure, you do need to make the burger correctly, or else they won't accept it, or they'll give you a low score. But if you do mess it up, they do give you a chance to be like, okay, I'll remake that for you, sir. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. I will remake that for you, sir. But it is very chill because you can kind of just take your time. Even if you have like 3 orders pending, you can kind of take your time, do it at your own leisure. So it's not like, oh, I need to rush and get 3 orders out. I can just work on one at a time. The recipe book is right there. So if someone orders a Galaxy Burger and you don't know what a Galaxy Burger is, you can look up the recipe for the Galaxy Burger. A lot of times people do just order like the regular burger or cheeseburger, which is a patty and ketchup and 2 buns, obviously, or add cheese in there with a cheeseburger. Most of the time, they also are doing their own custom orders as well. So it's like they'll order a simple burger with a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't normally put on a regular burger, or they'll order a burger and say add onion or add whatever, kind of like a McDonald's, right? And obviously, as you go through the game, you get more recipes and stuff unlocked. So it starts out with like, oh, we can only order burgers because, they're just kind of warming you up into the game. But as you level up your first restaurant, you start to unlock more recipes like the cheeseburger and the Galaxy Burger and the double Galaxy Burger, right? And so you got to kind of learn what the Galaxy Burger is, so when people order, you can go, oh, I can just do that. And I'm going to try and recite the recipe from my memory because I have been working so hard on trying to commit it to memory so I don't have to look it up every time someone orders it. It's a bun toasted with 2 pieces of lettuce on the bottom, a medium burger patty, two medium burger patties, then another piece of lettuce, a tomato, 2 cucumbers, ketchup? No ketchup. Burger bun. I think that's right. I'll have to look at the recipe again, of course. It's just been a really fun time. Like it's not like super fun. Like, oh, I can play this for a million like hours and hours on end. But it's been fun enough where it's like, okay, I do a couple days in the restaurant. Maybe I open another restaurant and go from there. The reason why it's called Galaxy Burger is because you start on Mercury and you go through the entire solar system, opening up restaurants on the various planets in the solar system. So you start on Mercury with the basics, and you can level that up to a 5-star restaurant if you so desire. Or you can buy a new, you can buy a new restaurant on the next planet, which is like, I think they put Earth next for whatever reason, but yeah, you can go to Earth and you can open up a restaurant on Earth, and you can also go to the moon. You can go to the moon, and you can move on to Mars, and then you can move all the way down to Saturn, and then you can choose another galaxy to go to, and if you want to open up more stores. So pretty much the base thing to do in the game is to work your way up until you have enough to buy a new store, and if you want something more challenging or something a bit more intricate, you can open up a new store on the next planet, which has more to do. So you start off with one griddle and a couple of condiments, ketchup and mayonnaise and mustard, and then you have like the fry vat with fries and onion rings, and that's kind of it. And then you moved over to Earth, and it's like, okay, now you have a bigger griddle with more condiments to use, eggs and stuff like that. You can fry eggs and stuff. And the people's orders become a bit more complicated. Like they're telling you to, oh, can you please grill the onions? Or, oh, can you please not toast the bun? Or you can remove the cheese from a cheeseburger. You know, just something to kind of mess you up a little bit, stumble you along the way. But you also have more stuff for the fryer, like the mozzarella balls or the potato wedges. And then the next planet is the moon, or not the planet, but the next thing is the moon. And the moon has a drink station, so you can do sparkling water or cola or whatever it's called. And those take a little while to fill up, so you can do other things while that happens. And I haven't moved on since past, I haven't moved past the moon right now, but the next one is Mars, and I can kind of already tell you that it's probably going to be even more complex once you get to Mars. And it's just, I mean, like I said, it's just a fun time. It definitely reminds me of those old school burger flipping games that I used to play. I think one of the first games where you like made food for people. I forget exactly what the game was called, but I'm sure if I describe it, a lot of people will go, "Oh yeah, that game." There was this game where it was like a school game. You know, they taught you like stuff. And people would come up with their lunch trays, and they would ask for, "Can I have 1/2 macaroni and 3/4 peas and 3/4 chocolate pudding?" And then you would put the stuff on the right spot on the tray for them. And that's like the first experience that I had with that. And ever since then, after playing the SpongeBob games and stuff like that, where you do cooking, I've always loved these kind of games. Not enough to be like, oh, I could definitely play this for 5 hours straight, but enough that I would, I saw it on Steam and I said, oh, that looks fun. And I bought it. And yeah, it's a fun, chill time. It's not a roguelite. It's not like Played Up where it's very chaotic. It's not like Overcooked where it's also very chaotic. It's just kind of like okay, we're cooking burgers for people. They're loving the food. You can even do like a smiley face with the ketchup if you want to, because you're in control. And you just try to get as close to their order as you can, and they'll give you a rating, they'll give you money, they'll give you a tip, and then you'll eventually, as you level up, you'll get more stuff for the kitchen, learn more recipes, etc. So if you want to check out Galaxy Burger, I think it's like $10 on Steam. It's not even that much money. Lots of love and care put into it. If you like cats, there's cats in mech suits that order burgers from you. There's also various alien waifus that come around who order food from you. And there's also robots. One of the newest things that they added to the game was the robots, and they actually take food to other planets, so you get extra delivery charges for them. So that's kind of fun in that way too. And it's not like you can really fail the game. I think that they can. I think you might be able to close a store down if you don't do well or if you go bankrupt. But I haven't gotten to that point, and nor do I think you can get to that point really. Yeah, it's just a chill time. It's a fun time. If you want to check that out, I would recommend that to a burger-loving person. It's also made me very hungry for burgers. I'm going to be going to Buffalo Wild Wings for football this Sunday. And I was playing this yesterday. I'm like, oh, I could really use a burger. And I was like, oh, I'm going to Buffalo tomorrow, so maybe I'll get a burger instead of wings. So I guess the game sold me on a burger. Next up, let's talk about some games that I streamed this past week. I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly here. Infamous Second Son was a good time. It's like a 3.5 out of 5. I have some discrepancies with how they designed the game. The good and bad systems are just not as fleshed out as the other Infamous games. Deslin as a character is great, but evil Deslin is like not a great character. Like Cole, when you go evil or good, he can kind of say like both those characters are good characters, right? Just in general, like they're well designed, well written. Deslin, on the other hand, is a very not well written character when you go the evil mode on him. And so we did a Paragon or a good run on this one, and I had a lot of fun with it. But I also, the cracks in the game really showed themselves. And PlayStation put out like this little teaser that showed like the Seattle needlepoint thingamajiggy. And I was like, oh, is this going to be like an infamous Second Son remake or remaster or re-release for the PS5 or something like that? It's also possible it could be them like saying like, okay, we're going to do an Infamous 1 and 2 collection, because there's also towers in that game as well, or those games as well. So who knows what they're going to do? I mean, it's rumored that there's going to be a state of play soon. So we'll see if there's maybe some merit to that, or they were just saying like, hey, it's the blah blah blah. And I think it's like the 5th anniversary or the 10th anniversary of Second Son. It's got to be the 10th, because 2014 is when the game came out. So yeah, maybe they're just like, hey, it's the 10th anniversary of Infamous Second Son, woohoo. Or maybe maybe PlayStation did give it to like a remastering developer, and they can maybe work out some of the things with the graphics that I wasn't too crazy about. But in general, it's a good game. But the unfortunate thing is like, yeah, you get like 4 powers, but only 2 of them are really fun to use, which is Video and Neon. Smoke is good until you get Neon, just because Smoke is the only thing you have. And Concrete, this is how I did it. Neon and Video, Smoke, and Concrete. I did the what's up sign for Concrete. I don't know why. Concrete is just not fun to use at all. And if you've played the game, you know. Also, Injustice Gods Among Us. We replayed that on the channel. I had a lot of fun with it. Obviously, it's not the best fighting game ever, but it is one that I think a lot of people could, easily pick up and play. A lot of the characters play similarly, which is really accentuated in the story mode. When the story mode does start to get a little bit more difficult, it's pretty much because the characters are so different as you go through. Because you start off with like Hal and Batman, stuff like that. They play very similarly, where their combos and stuff are kind of mapped similarly. But then you get to the end of the game, it's like, okay, you're playing as Wonder Woman, who has a very unique move style, or you're playing as Superman, who obviously has a very unique play style, and Lex Luthor. So I think the one thing that I love about Injustice the most is just the world that they built, where Superman, he unintentionally kills Lois and his unborn child, and he goes crazy, and he goes he kills Joker, and he makes this whole like regime that is controlling the world. All the superheroes kind of band together, and they follow Superman, not out of like, oh, we're with you, but maybe out of fear, And I love that. I love that idea of that universe, and these characters coming over from like a normal, maybe like an Earth 1 kind of universe. They're coming over to this one, and they're going, oh wow, this is fucked, right? And I love that. And the other thing that I love about this game too is like they put out a prequel comic book series for Injustice. It's like 5 to 6 volumes, and it is so good. Like if you love the Injustice story and you want to expand it on, like, oh, what happened to Guy Gardner, or what happened to this character, it's most likely in those comic books. So if you go back and you can get all those volumes, I think they're all very much worth reading. It does kind of fizzle out more towards the end. But the main thing that I love to recommend to people is like, okay, the first volume of comics is really good, but the Green Lantern War, which I think is volume 3, is like peak DC, like Elseworld fiction. And it is so good. Like the Green Lantern War is so good. It's got twists and turns. It shows the reason why Hal went over to Sinestro's side. All these different things. It is just such a good a series of comics, and I would recommend that one. Like even if you don't even care about comic books, like it's such a good story. It's got so many good things in there. And then they also did a comic book for the game itself. So if you didn't really like how the animation looked in the game or whatever, there is a comic version of the game that you can get as well, which is also very well done. Like obviously you know what's going to happen because you play the game, you know what's going to happen, but it's got good artwork and stuff like that. Injustice 2 also did like a prequel comic leading up to the main comic, and then of course they went through the events of the game and blah blah blah. Injustice 2 in general is not a better game in my opinion than Injustice. Obviously, I need to replay it to confirm that, but from what I remember, it was just not as good as Injustice: Gods Among Us, and also the prequel comic was not as engaging or as good as the prequel comic for Injustice as well. So it kind of just failed in both sides. So in the end, I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5. It's a bit higher than most people would rate it, but I do like this one a bit more than a lot of people. The one thing that I wish happened in this game was they gave more costumes to all the characters, because as it stands, like Superman and Batman have the most costumes, then everyone else is kind of like one or two underneath it, and it's kind of like, okay. And then finally, we played Shrek Treasure Hunt, which is a PS1 game based on Shrek. I believe this is one of the first Shrek games that came out, because it kind of loosely has things referencing the movie, but not totally referencing the movie, which kind of tells me that like this game was worked on while the movie was in production, and they kind of got cliff notes on like what happens. So instead of making a game where you go through the events of the Shrek movie, you do mini games, and there's some things that reference the Shrek movie, like, oh, here's the part where Dragon is attacking you in the castle, or oh, here's the I was about to say the minecart section, but once again, as I said during stream, the minecart section was a deleted scene that I really loved, and I kind of forced it into my memory, my core memory of the movie. But there's the minecart area, so that kind of tells me, like, okay, yeah, if there's a minecart area, maybe the minecart was pretty much a shoo-in for the movie, but they decided to take it out kind of last minute kind of thing, which kind of shows in the like they storyboarded it and all that stuff, that minecart section. So it's possible that when the people who developed this game got the info for what the movie was going to be about, the minecart was still in there. So maybe that's why there's a minecart or mine shaft or whatever you want to call it. And obviously it's like it's like a lot of really bad mini games. It's a mini game collection, and it's also a collect-a-thon. You collect like 10 items, and then you unlock the mini game, and then you play the mini game, and you unlock a key, and you take that key to the waterfall, and that's like the final mini game, which is the dragon attack. But the mini games just aren't good. There's one mini game that I thought was designed actually pretty well, which was the one where you're throwing tomatoes at like the Duloc soldiers who are like puppets. And I thought that was designed well, but not like great, because it still had like some weird auto aim to it. But everything else is just like so poorly designed. There's this one that's like a platforming adventure that just did not work at all, or didn't work well at all. There was another one that you were capturing worms, and it was just like Shrek spinning in a circle, and you're like throwing this net out. The fishing one was very annoying, and it was too long. There's just so many that I just have no interest in ever playing again or ever thinking about again. So in terms of like minigame collections, this is one of the worst. It is probably the worst minigame collection I've ever played, seeing as there's only one minigame that I actually enjoyed from it. And the rest of the game is a very stiff and annoying like collect-a-thon. Shrek can't even attack enemies. Like there's these boars and rabbits and stuff running around that can knock you over. You can never die, but you can get knocked over. And there's no way for you to like attack them or do anything. You just kind of run past them. So even in terms of like gameplay in general, it's not good. So I gave it a 1 out of 5. It did save itself from being an F tier simply because it was playable and it worked enough to get to the end. And I didn't have to finish it off stream because I got so pissed at it, So it saved itself from that. But in general, I think it is kind of on that F tier cusp, simply because it is just such a bad minigame collection. But what you gonna do? All right, let's go ahead and move on to what's in the news. All right, first things first here for the news. Microsoft has this new push on, I guess, push in advertisement, not on advertisement, but in advertisement. The latest catchphrase is, "This is an Xbox." And the reason why I'm talking about this is because, as we already know, Xbox has been kind of pulling away from consoles in a way. And they've been releasing Xbox apps and Game Pass on multiple different devices. And, there was very strong rumors that like Xbox was trying to get onto the Switch, and Xbox is trying to get their Game Pass onto like PlayStation, and this whole trailer, like, even though it's a well-designed advertisement, not trailer, advertisement. Yeah. It also kind of shows you, like, yeah, they are kind of pulling away from a console, because, it starts off showing the Xbox Series X, and it's like, this is an Xbox. And then they pull out, and it's like, well, here's a TV by itself. This is an Xbox. If you have, like, a smart TV that can download the Xbox app, and then you have, like, you can Bluetooth a controller to connect to it, right? And then they pull out even more, and it's like, oh, and now there's a phone, and the phone is also an Xbox. So you can play Xbox games on your phone, and you can connect a phone to it. And then they pull out even more, and there's I think it's an ANEO or something like that. It's one of those handheld portable, the like almost like a Steam Deck. It came out of my mind for a second there. A Steam Deck. It's almost like a Steam Deck. I think it's called an ANEO. And they're saying like, this is an Xbox. You can download Game Pass on this and play Xbox games on this. And then they pull out again, and it's like, oh, there's a laptop, and it's like, hey, this is an Xbox. You can play Xbox on PC on laptop. This is one too. They show two other of those Steam Deck type controller consoles. And then, they pull out even more, and they're like, hey, here's someone playing on their phone with a controller. This is an Xbox. It's a gaming phone, I guess. So, it's also funny, like, because they're going to be showing this advertisement on YouTube and on TV, they're like, now you're watching this on an Xbox. So you can go download the Xbox app right now on whatever you're using this on, whether it be a tablet or a phone or a laptop or a TV. So this marketing push is one, I think, like, okay, say what you want, but I think that this is a good marketing push. Like, this is actually a pretty good advertisement for Xbox. Because you look at the PlayStation, and it's like, okay, you can play a PlayStation with the console. You can play the PlayStation. There is a phone app that you can play PlayStation on, but it's like linked to your PlayStation anyway. There's the PlayStation portable console, or not console, but peripheral. And it's like, okay, well, you need to connect that to a PlayStation. There's a PlayStation VR 2, which is like, okay, but it still won't work without a PlayStation unless you have that adapter for your PC. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Xbox does have that market kind of cornered where it's like, okay, you can play Xbox anywhere. We're not forcing you to play on one single location. But once again, as I've said before, it's also a bit detrimental because it's like, okay, well, if I don't need to buy an Xbox console, if I don't need to buy an Xbox console, why am I going to buy an Xbox console over a PlayStation or over a Switch or whatever the next Switch is going to be? So that does hamper Xbox's sales of consoles if you can just play Xbox on anything, right? Which does make me believe, like, yeah, they're kind of going down that slippery slope that Sega went down, where it's like, okay, we'll step out of the gaming market in terms of console wars and just put our games on everything. And even though Sega is still a very prominent company in the gaming universe, it's definitely less so prominent now that they don't have a console going up against Nintendo or whatever, right? So I could see Xbox eventually down the road pulling out of the console market, especially because of this advertisement. It's definitely looking like that. Or they could stay in the console wars and say, hey, we're going to lose money on these consoles, but at least we have a console. They don't have any quote-unquote exclusives because, you can play Indiana. You're going to be able to play Indiana Jones on Xbox first, of course, but you can also play it at the same time on PC. And then eventually, next year it's going to come to PlayStation. You can also, like Pentiment was an Xbox exclusive, quote unquote, but you could also play it on PC, and you could also play it on Switch, and it is released on Steam. So there's all these games that could be. I don't know if Indiana Jones or Pentiment are system sellers. Halo was at one point, but it's really not anymore. So they don't really have like that system seller, in my opinion, that will really get people excited. Like, oh, I gotta get an Xbox to play Pentiment. Back in the day, it was, oh, I gotta get an Xbox to play Halo 3, or oh, I gotta get an Xbox to play Gears of War. But now it's not really like that. It's like, oh, I can just boot up Xbox Game Pass on PC or the Xbox app on PC, and I can just play Gears of War 5 or Gears 5, and I'll be fine. Or I can just if I want to play Halo Infinite, I don't need an Xbox Series X or S. I can just pull it up on my phone and play on my phone. Like, so there is that side to it where it's like they're gonna have to realize like we're gonna take a lot of loss from not selling consoles, and even if they do design a console, it's probably gonna underperform, much like the Xbox Series X did for them. I don't know if it underperformed too much, but it still underperformed. So it is one of those things where it's a double-edged blade where it's like, okay, on one end you are selling Xbox Game Pass to probably more people than you've ever before, But on the other side of it, you're going to be losing money if you're not selling consoles, if you're not selling games themselves, which I've already dived into plenty, so I'm not going to really expand on that. But I think that in terms of an advertisement, this is an Xbox is a great marketing strategy, and it kind of shows where their mindset is going forward. And I don't think it's wholly a bad thing, but we'll have to see how Microsoft deals with this. Because as we saw when they were trying to acquire Activision Blizzard, they were, oh, woe is me, we're not selling too many consoles. Oh, woe is me, our exclusives don't sell as well as PlayStation or Nintendo's. But in the end, they turn around, they twiddle their fingers. They're like, oh, but we have over 1 million subscribers on Xbox Game Pass. And it's like, yes, you do. It's like, oh, we have deals with so many companies to put Xbox on their phones and on their consoles and be able to play Xbox Game Pass on an AO Neo. So it's a, like I said, it's a double-edged sword there. But I think that Microsoft will be fine, even if they decide to jump out of the console market. I think they'll still be very much fine. And this advertisement kind of just tells me that. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments below. My throat got very dry during that last section, so I apologize if I clear my throat a couple times or cough a couple times because I don't know what happened. I have my glass of water right here. All right, Microsoft has issued a statement on the workers who went on strike recently. During this past week, some members of the ZeniMax group went on strike. Developers who are working on games like Doom, Fallout, and The Elder Scrolls. They put out a statement saying, "Today we are on strike. We are not afraid to do what's necessary to make sure that Microsoft meets us at the bargaining table over key issues like remote work options and outsourcing. We deserve job security and improved working conditions. Hundreds of our members are striking from 10 to 6 p.m. in Maryland and Texas today to tell Microsoft to stop dragging their feet." And Microsoft, being one of those studios that is very vocal on things, if something happens, they do normally put out a statement. They did put out a statement, albeit it was a bit short. They said, "We respect our employees' rights to express their point of view as they have done today. We will continue to listen and address their concerns at the bargaining table." So obviously this wasn't a huge strike like what's happening in France with Ubisoft, but it is a statement to make, to strike and leave your studios and stop working for I mean that's a 6-hour time frame, or yeah. And obviously that's going to affect the bottom line for Microsoft if their studios are striking, for 6 hours. So yeah, I think that it's nice that people are able to strike, and Microsoft is being pretty respectable. They're not saying like get back to work, they're not doing that kind of thing. And that's one thing that I do like about Microsoft is they are very I want to say personable. They seem to want to work with their developers to improve the conditions of the working development world. But on the other end, they just laid off a bunch of workers who worked on Redfall and stuff like that, simply because they didn't have the money anymore to support them, and the games failed. They lost the people who did Hi-Fi Rush, right? Because they didn't want to pay them anymore, even though their game was a success in terms of critics and stuff like that. Because the game didn't sell enough copies, they shut them down. So there is again a two-faced nature to Microsoft, where it's they're one side they're we're going to work with our workers to improve working conditions, and there's another end where it's oh, but we need to lay off 200 employees because Activision Blizzard, took up so much money, So it's one of those things where it's very two-faced, but I think that Microsoft in general does seem to have a bit of a better PR, at least, for this kind of stuff. And, the statement that they made, it's short, but it is effective. It does say something. And everyone did go back to work. So this was on the 14th of November that they did the strike, and they did go back to work after the strike ended, and we'll see what happens in the future. But as of right now, that's kind of where we're at with that. Super Nintendo World is opening up the Donkey Kong Country themed park, and this is the one in Japan, so it's not the one in the U.S. yet. But there was a Nintendo Direct centered around the Donkey Kong Country expansion to Super Mario World. I'm sorry, Super Nintendo World in Osaka, Japan. And they had a bunch of teasers and footage of the park, and it really does look amazing. Like, you walk in through those gates, and you are in the world of Donkey Kong. There's like this big Aztec-inspired Donkey Kong or monkey face that flows steam or water from its mouth. There's a Cranky Kong animatronic with the parrot who kind of like interacts with guests. There's a Ramby Rhino that kind of comes out of a box here and there. It seems like they'll also have like a drum show as well for audiences. You can also have your little wristwatch, and there's the different letters of Kong, Kong, around the park. And you can tap them, and you can collect all the letters of Kong to get something special. They also showed off the food, and my goodness, the food looks good. Like, there's this one that's like a hot dog with Doritos on it. It just looks very good. There's also specialty drinks and ice creams, and you get like this DK barrel mug, which is also a pre-order thing for the Donkey Kong Country Returns remaster. But yeah, the video itself was very fun. Shigeru Miyamoto is obviously walking around the park, and he's talking and interacting with the people. And yeah, he played the bongo game. He collected the K for the Kong. He also interacted with the Donkey Kong mascot who comes out. They didn't really show... I guess they kind of showed the ride a little bit, but they didn't show it almost at all, which is kind of like, oh, I wish that they would have showed that ride in motion, because I think it's like a roller coaster, right? It's like a minecart roller coaster ride, and one of the cool things about the roller coaster ride was you get shot out of a barrel, and it looks like your cart is on no track, right? So that would have been kind of cool to see in action. And the Japanese audience, if I remember correctly from other interviews and stuff, they're not like super into like the fast and crazy rides, which is why like the Nintendo World itself has like the slow moving monorail Yoshi ride and stuff like that. Whereas like the American version of Nintendo World has the really fast paced like Mario Kart section and stuff like that. So it would be kind of unique for them to have like a wild and crazy ish kind of roller coaster ride. And I'm sure the Japanese people love roller coasters like that. That's not what I'm saying, but it seems like a lot of things that they do in like their theme parks is a bit more toned down in some ways, especially for like these theme parks like this. But yeah, I mean, if you want to check out the Super Nintendo World Direct, it's on Nintendo's YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, there's an English version as well on both the US and UK YouTube channels as well. But yeah, I mean, it looks like there's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure that we'll see more about the US version of this in the near future, because that's also being worked on as we speak. Maybe not today, but it's being worked on. Okay, the Game Awards has put out a post talking about DLC expansion packs and remakes. Are they eligible for Game of the Year contention? And I've always been in the camp of, if something is a remake or a remaster, or if it's a big enough expansion where it's like a whole new game, I've always been in the camp of, yes, that is definitely eligible for Game of the Year. Like Dead Space from last year is a good example where that completely retooled things and made it a very they built on top of that base game, and they made a whole new experience, right? That was on my top 10 list last year for good reason. Resident Evil 2 remake, when that originally came out, it had plenty of people saying like Game of the Year, Game of the Year, Game of the Year, and you know, back then I even was like, yeah, I mean, it is just a remake in quotation marks, but it's such a new and unique experience. Like even though I wouldn't put it as Game of the Year because it is still a remake at the end of the day, it was still on my top 10 list that year, which obviously isn't on YouTube or anything like that, but it was on there because it was such a good experience. It was such a good take on that original Resident Evil game that a lot of people never even played nowadays at this point. So why are they putting this out now? A lot of people are saying they're talking about this because they're going to be putting Shadow of the Erd Tree for Game of the Year, which is at its core, it's a big DLC, right? I personally would say that Shadow of the Erdtree has enough content. It has a whole new map. It has like 30 plus hours of just base game stuff for you to do. It has so many new enemies and bosses in there. It is its own game per se. The problem is that it can't work without the base game of Elden Ring. If you don't have Elden Ring, you don't have Shadow of the Erdtree, which is the factor that I usually think about when I'm going, okay, is this giant DLC eligible for my Game of the Year stuff? And personally, I do think that Shadow of the Erdtree should be eligible for these types of things because it is such a big expansion. But my only caveat is that it does require an older game to work. There are other games that have come out in the past, like Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry, which did start out as a DLC, but also was its own thing. It was its own game. There's plenty of those examples that you can have where it's a big DLC, like the Uncharted Lost Legacy. But it also doesn't require the base game to play. You can play Lost Legacy without having Uncharted 4 installed. It's its own game. It is a giant DLC. It started out as a DLC, but it became its own thing. And that's of course, I think Shadow of the Erdtree is why they are coming out with this explanation of what's eligible. Why did we update our thing? So let me read this FAQ here. So it says, are DLCs, expansion packs, remakes / remasters eligible for Game of the Year? And in the response it says, the Game Awards aims to recognize the best creative and technical work each year, irrespective of the format of that content's release. Expansion packs, new game seasons, DLCs, remakes, and remasters are eligible in all categories if the jury deems the new creative and technical work to be worthy of a nomination. Factors such as newness of the content and its price and value should be taken into consideration. So it seems like, I do agree with this statement. Do I think that the Game Awards is going to follow this to a T? Obviously not. Putting in there seasons, new game seasons. So does that mean that Fortnite can win Game of the Year this year because it put out season, 5 million? Is that what we're saying? A season of content is worth Game of the Year, Oh, they put Eminem into Fortnite, so, season 4 of Fortnite is eligible for Game of the Year. I don't know what they're going to do with this. Because there are, in some ways, this does make sense, where it's okay, yeah, Shadow of the Erdtree giant DLC could be up for Game of the Year. And I think I would agree with it being up for Game of the Year. It was a great DLC. But should it win over a fully fledged experience like Astrobot or Dragon Age Veilguard or Stellar Blade or whatever you preferred this year? I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, it is still just a big expansion. But if it is your Game of the Year, that's that. I'm not gonna gatekeep that. That's completely fine if Shadow of the Erdtree would be your Game of the Year, because it is a big enough game and it's a big enough expansion to be yeah, that's it. This works as a full-fledged game. So even though my criteria is a bit different from the Game Awards, it is kind of similar in a lot of ways, where it's it's kind of it's almost like a case-by-case basis, where it's okay, Dead Space from last year, they improved on that game 100%. They changed how the game works at times. They added voice acting for Isaac, etc., etc. That makes it its own unique experience, separate from the original game. Shadow of the Erdtree, giant DLC, uses a lot of the same mechanics, but they added a bunch of new stuff. They added a bunch of new enemies, a bunch of new areas, a new map, an entire map to explore, a new story, new bosses. That does make it in itself a worthy thing to put onto a best of kind of list. But something like Fortnite Season 4 Part 5 does not, if you have, I'm sure there's somebody who is I'm going to put Fortnite Season 1 through 5 on my top 5 list this year, right? I don't agree with that kind of thing. Season content, I don't think so. Are they also trying to be oh, well, Overwatch 2 technically Season 3 was a big turning point for us, so we're going to put up for game, why? I don't know. So once again, it's a bit of a murky subject. It's got some murky water there. It's not completely clear, but I think that this is very much like a case by case basis type thing where it's like, yeah, these things can be eligible for Game of the Year and other categories, but it's very much like a if I personally think that it's worth it, or if the jury, whoever the jury is, thinks it's worth it, then like, yeah, I think that, putting Shadow of the Earth Tree on like the Game of the Year list like wouldn't be a bad thing. But once again, it's obviously a wait and see type moment. So, but I think that they're putting this out specifically because they are putting Shadow of the Earth Tree on there. And if it does end up winning, I'm not gonna like complain, but I will be a bit like, okay, well, Elden Ring won last year, and now Shadow of the Earth Tree wins this year. I don't know. And I do have my complaints about Shadow of the Earth Tree, of course. I've talked about it in length before if you want to go back to those episodes. But I do think that like putting it up for Game of the Year or whatever wouldn't be a sin. It wouldn't be a sin for me. So, we'll see how that goes. We'll see what happens there. I believe the official nominations for the Game Awards are on Monday. So if this comes out on Monday, that's the reason why. It's because I recorded this early. So next week I'll talk about the Game Award nominees. And don't forget that the Ferret Awards are also coming up. I will start nominations for that probably around December, like maybe the second week of December or something like that. So keep an eye out on the Discord, on Twitter, on the various social media networks for the forum to nominate games for this year's Ferret Awards. And if you haven't done it before, it's pretty easy. I just put out a Google document. You put your name on it, your username, not your real name, your username on it, just so I know that it's all being unique, and fill it out with your favorite games in the various categories. And I'll talk more about that on the episode where I'll just lay it all out. I'll talk about the new categories, the old categories, let you know what's up, how long the nomination period will be for, and then we'll go from there. So. Okay, the Splinter Cell movie has apparently been canceled. I don't remember when they announced that they were making a Splinter Cell movie, but it feels like it's been long enough for me to not remember that. So in a quote, they said, "That movie would have been awesome. Just couldn't get it right. Script-wise, budget-wise, but it was going to be great. We had a million different versions of it, but it was going to be a hardcore and awesome movie. That's one of those that got away, which is really sad." And I believe that was coming from the guy who worked on the John Wick franchise. They gave him the Splinter Cell series to work on for a movie. And I feel like Splinter Cell in movie form would not be that difficult to make a movie based on. All you need is you need your main spy character, go out on a couple missions, have an overarching like villainous story, and have some stealth action, like that's all you really need. Like you can have your big action set pieces, your stealth stuff. You can also have maybe a romantic interest as well. I don't care. It doesn't seem that hard for me. I mean, this is me, the guy just talking on a podcast, but it doesn't seem that hard to like, storyboard it out. Like Sam Fisher, right? That's his name, Sam Fisher. He's a secret agent, and he is being ordered by the president to go hunt down this person, and he's a big terrorist asset or whatever. And then you go through like a worldwide adventure where you're doing stealth through a movie theater or through the back of an army department, or he finds out that there's a mole inside of the U.S. and he's trailing them, and he's doing stealth in like an apartment complex or something like that. Or there's a section where there could also be a section where all hell breaks loose and he gets caught while doing his stealth, and kind of like how the games are, like you kind of want to get back into stealth. So he does like a Batman smoke bomb and gets out of view, and there's like this. It doesn't seem that hard to just come up with a couple ideas based off of what the game is, and obviously base it off of other things as well. Like you could easily take inspiration from other espionage spy movies, like even the Mission Impossible. You could easily take inspiration for that, or the other one, like Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. The Jason Bourne series could also be inspiration for you. Doesn't seem that hard in general, but I guess this is dead in the water, so we probably won't hear any more about this. Speaking of live action stuff, the second season of Fallout is coming around, and they cast Macaulay Culkin in it. We're not sure exactly what his role is going to be, but they did say that he's going to play a crazy genius type character. So with the game supposedly being set in Fallout New Vegas next, we can only guess as to what the context will be for that. But it's pretty cool that Macaulay Culkin, Kevin McAllister is his name in Home Alone. Macaulay Culkin will be in Fallout, which is kind of cool. You don't really see him around too much because, I mean, obviously as a child actor, he was mistreated, if I remember from an interview. But it will be cool to see him in the series, and we'll see how big of a role he has if it's just like an Easter egg role or like a one and done kind of role, or if he becomes a main character. I think it'd be kind of cool because I think Macaulay Culkin in general is a pretty good actor in general. He's had some ups and downs, of course, but it's good to see him back on his feet and getting more roles. So I'm very excited to see more about that. Okay, the Grand Theft Auto trilogy, the remastered trilogy of 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, got a major update recently. And one of the major things for that update was they removed the studio that originally worked on the game from the splash screens. They still kept them in the credits, but the splash screen was taken off of the opening stuff. Also in this update, they fixed the lighting. They brought fog back. They changed how the combat works. Character designs and stuff like that and animations are mostly fixed. Crouching is now fixed. Parallax interiors are gone. I'm not sure what that means. Different weather. Yes, they've actually enabled the weather to change as you play the game. You can now pause the game in cutscenes, and you can now fly through clouds. All things that I feel like could have been in the original release of this. But if you don't recall, this was a pretty bare bones re-release of a mobile port of the games. It's nice to see that they are fixing this issue. My only problem is, like, if you get the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy game physical, you'll have to download this update. I don't think they're reprinting discs or anything for this game, so you'll probably need to download an update for it, which means that if you for whatever reason in the future they shut down the service for PlayStation or whatever, it means that you won't be able to play the best version of the game because it's locked behind an update. Now, they could possibly reprint this game. I'm sure they've reprinted it before. So that would be nice to get like an updated version where the update is on the disc or on the cartridge itself. But, it's hard to say. The people who originally worked on the game, which was Grove Street Games, did come out in a statement, and they said, speaking hypothetically, it's a dick move to remove primary developers from credits in an update, especially when an update includes hundreds of fixes that were provided by those developers and stayed out of players' hands for years. And obviously, like I said, they're still in the credits of the game, but the splash screen for the original developers is gone. Now, if it is true that they took them out of the splash screens, even though they helped work on this update for the game, that is kind of a dick move, sure. But I guess we'll never really know for certain. But once again, it is nice that they're still up there, that they're updating this game, because when this trilogy came out, it was one of the worst rated remasters I've ever seen. I played the San Andreas on the San Andreas remaster on Xbox Game Pass, and I probably got 5 minutes into it before I was like, this is an ugly mess. And hopefully it's been much improved, but I haven't played it again in a while, so we'll see what happens. All right. The PlayStation VR camera adapter for the PS5 is not being restocked. So you can get a free adapter if you live in, if you have a PlayStation VR 2. If you go onto PlayStation's website, you can order one for the manufacturer for free, which allows you to play your PlayStation VR on the PlayStation 5, which is nice. I ordered one myself, and it was a bit of a hassle to get it, but you do need the serial number for your PlayStation VR's console, they call it, which is the box that you plug all the HDMI cables into. So you need that, and you also need the serial number of your PS5, which is also kind of annoying. But it is free, but it's a limited stock. So there's only enough left for, as much as the stock has. I think that if you have a PlayStation VR, it would be very beneficial for you to grab a adapter. It is free. They pay for shipping as well. But if you don't, then there's really, you can't even get one for in general, and two would be useless for you. But if you do have a PlayStation VR and you do plan on playing it, or even if you don't plan on playing it ever again, I would still, it's a free item. It's like worth $15, like a la carte. So it's a free little thing. It's pretty easy to use. It's pretty much a one USB kind of thing, plugs into your console, and then it allows everything to work. The setup for the PSVR 1 is still a bit crazy, obviously, but at this point, my PS4, I kind of don't want to turn it on and off too many more times because it is kind of being a bit grumbly with me. Every time a firmware update comes out, it kind of like doesn't want to boot anymore. So I have to uninstall the firmware and load it manually myself on a USB stick. So I've been switching away from using the PS4, even though I still like the PS. Like I'll be honest, I like the PS4 controller better than the PS5 controller. I will be honest, but I would rather save the life of my PS4 than just use the PS4. And I think you can plug a PS4 controller and have it work on the PS5 still. But yeah. Anyway, if you want this adapter, it's free while supplies last. They're not making any more of them, so the price may skyrocket too if you wait around for it. It's like I said, it's a little bit complicated to get into the chat where you need to to do that stuff. But once you get it done, they ship it right to you free of charge, which is nice. All right, finally for the news today. 2 Xbox games are closing their servers at the end of 2024. This is obviously also applies to Switch and PlayStation. Friday the 13th, the game, which we've known about for a while, it is off of store shelves at this point by last year. But now they did say that the servers were only going to be up until the 31st of December 2024, so right before the new year. So if you still have things that you want to do with Friday the 13th, the game, or if you want to get that last game in, the servers will be shutting down very soon at this point. They did not say if they were going to extend the life of it or not. I think they were waiting to see how the player base was. If it was still a healthy player base, they may keep it up for longer. I don't know how the player base is, though, and it seems like they are going to be shutting it down officially on the 31st of December. Also shutting down on December 31st is the servers for NBA 2K23 on the Xbox One and the PS4. It's very strange that they're already shutting down servers for this game, which came out, obviously, I think this one came out 2 years ago, right? 2K23? Or maybe it was 1 year. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It is a bit soon. And they actually are also planning on shutting down the servers on the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S version as well. So if you play 2K23, those servers will be shutting down on the 31st, which is a bit crazy. So, like I said, if you want to play either of these games online before they shut down, there you go. It's a bit more detrimental for Friday the 13th, seeing as that is an online-only game. But I digress. All right, let's move on to what's coming soon. All right, Stellar Blade, we've talked about it a couple times in this podcast today, is teaming up with Nier Automata, for some DLC. They're adding 2B into the game as a costume. And they also have a couple of other costumes as well associated with the IP of Nier. There's obviously the 2B costume, but there's also a couple of variants for the costume as well that kind of makes it a bit more revealing. All those people who were complaining about censorship in Stellar Blade, and we have this new DLC pack has the most boobage that you can ever see on the character, minus the see-through one that is like the hardcore skin or whatever. The amount of boobage on this one is very high. They did not say how much the DLC was going to cost, but it was going to be a paid DLC. There is going to be a free update along with this that will be available for everyone. There's going to be 11 new cosmetic items in the game. Yeah, I think that this is actually a nice DLC, I guess. There's a lot to be seen here, obviously. So if you're a fan of Stellar Blade and you're a fan of Nier Automata, you can go ahead and check this out on November 20th, if you so desire. Also, Stellar Blade is being planned to be brought to... Did I say that right? Stellar Blade is planned to be coming to the PC in 2025. In an announcement from the company, they said that a port for the game should be arriving sometime in 2025. I'm sure there's like a year-long exclusivity deal that PlayStation has, so I'm guessing we'll probably see it mid-2025 after that is up. Shift Up is the developer behind it, and they said that players should expect to see it on PSC sometime in 2025. No more information about it right now, but there you go. Sega has released a new Sonic game. What? Yes, that's right. You can now play a Sonic the Hedgehog exclusive Top Golf game. What's Top Golf? Top Golf is it's like a driving range where you get drunk. And you just kind of hit balls in with like 50 other people. You hit balls into an open field. And essentially what this is a little mini game that you can play along with your golfing habits. So it seems to measure your swing, and I'm pretty sure it measures how far the ball goes. And that's how far your character moves in the game, and you collect rings and all that stuff. I don't know how exactly it works per se, but let's read a statement by Topgolf themselves. They said, "At Topgolf, we believe in the unlimited power of play and creating moments of joy for everyone who steps into our venues. The multi-generational appeal of Sonic's iconic energy and speed gives our players a fresh, playful way to just have a little fun together with friends and family. The new Sonic game in partnership with Sega absolutely takes the Topgolf experience to the next level." So there will also be exclusive merch available at Topgolf as well, at their club called The Sure Thing, which is like, I guess, inside of their venues. So you'll be able to start playing Sonic the Hedgehog Topgolf in Q1 of 2025 at Topgolf locations. This game was actually developed by Topgolf themselves in collaboration with Sega. So don't expect anything super crazy like Sonic Frontiers or Sonic X Shadows Generations, but I guess a pretty, I mean, from the little clip snippets of gameplay that we see, I mean, it doesn't look like terrible, but of course it's also being controlled by the swing of your golf club. So I don't know how crazy and intricate it's going to be. But there you go. Sonic Topgolf, or Topgolf Sonic, whatever they're going to call it. All right, Anton Blast, which has been delayed at this point because of the hurricanes in Florida. There's going to be a physical edition of the game coming out in 2025. So in a statement, they said, "That's right, you've asked, and here's your answer. Anton Blast will get a physical release in 2025 from the good folks at Fangamer who are distributing it. You're going to want this." So it seems like pre-orders will be starting on... Actually, they didn't say. Pre-orders will be starting up sometime in 2025. You can actually sign up to get a notification when they go live on Fangamer's website. Fangamer as a site is actually one of my favorite video game collectible sites, or whatever, like just like merchandise sites. They run a pretty good business over there, and I think I will be picking this up, even though Anton Blast comes out on December 3rd at this point because it was delayed. It was delayed from November to December. I'll probably wait to pick up a physical version of the game next year because it looks like a lot of fun, and I think I will be... I obviously really want to play this, so if I like it enough, maybe I'll just buy it digitally and physically. I don't know. We'll see, though. I do want to play this soon, though, so... Maybe I will. You know what? I probably will pick it up. I say that a lot where it's like, I'm going to wait on this, and then I just buy it anyway. This is probably going to be one of those games. All right, the Secret Level show from Amazon Prime launched another trailer for it, and it is coming soon at this point. I misspoke in a past episode saying, "Oh, it's available now." I was wrong. It is not available now. It's still coming soon, but it is coming very soon at this point. If you don't know, it's coming from the same people behind Love, Death, and Robots, which was a very highly rated show as well from Amazon. In the little teaser, they just kind of show off the various different characters, I guess the main characters that you'll be seeing in these various different universes. Obviously, the animation is very good, and it does change per game. So, like the Sifu show looks like a Sifu game, show. It looks like the game. But there's also some very, very good looking shots as well. Like there was a shot from Space Marine, which looked very good. Looks very realistic. There was also a shot with a guy riding on a motorcycle for one of the New World Atarium or something like that, which also looked very good as well. And of course, there's a lot of various different games being put into this, like Splunky and Sifu and Armored Core and Outer Worlds and stuff like that. And then randomly, Concord is also in here as well. And they did not focus on Concord too much. I believe that they put out a statement about Concord, but I don't remember if it was anything too crazy. But it might be a bit weird to see Concord in this mix of all these like games that are doing very well or already released. Like even though Outer Wilds 2 isn't released yet, we do know that's once it does get released, it's not going to go away, right? But yeah, I mean, they also putting spins on these games as well. Like the Pac-Man seems to be like a horror kind of thing. The Mega Man thing is very much more like a superhero kind of vibe to it. So yeah, if you want to check out the trailer for that, it's on Amazon. It's on Prime Video's YouTube channel. Ghostface is officially coming to Mortal Kombat 1 very soon. It's coming in the newest pack of DLC, which will be available. Early access starts on the 19th of November, and it'll be fully released on the 26th. So yeah, you have to wait a little bit longer. But the trailer itself is very good. If you want to check that out, it's on Mortal Kombat's YouTube channel, of course. They actually did a very good job with Ghostface's his moveset. Obviously, it's very much inspired by the earlier versions of Ghostface, but they're also jumping into the whole like duality of Ghostface, where it's not just one killer, it's multiple killers. So that's also how they're able to like, have him be like him like teleport and stuff like that, because it's actually a different Ghostface. It's actually a different character. I feel like the all the moves that they gave him were pretty cool. He has like a radio, which is kind of a fun little thing to have with him. So he talks into the radio and calls in his other Ghostface guy that come in and stab you. The fatality that they showed off was very good, like really good, very meta as well. Essentially, he starts to do like a stab of the character, and it zooms out, and it's actually Johnny Cage playing the game on a TV. And Ghostface comes out behind Johnny, and he stabs him, and the blood splatters on the screen. And I think that's just like a really cool meta thing. It really ties into the Scream movies and stuff like that. So looks like it's going to be a very fun character to play as. I can't wait to watch people play as him, because I'm not really big into Mortal Kombat 1, but I do watch a couple of YouTube channels that specialize in Mortal Kombat gameplay, like the LOL Hounds and stuff like that. So very fun character, very fun trailer. The last speedrun level for Astrobot has been released. It's called Rising Heat, and as predicted, you use the monkey to climb up a tower as fast as you can. Like I said before, I haven't really been into most of these other speedrun levels after the second one, and I have not put as much time into this one as I did for the first two. So my time on it is nothing like to gawk about. I'm not going to like sit here and be like, oh, it's such a good time, because it's really not. And even though I did like this one, I think the design of it is nice. The way that you control the monkey hands in both the Astro Playroom and in Astrobot itself, it's always been a bit finicky. And even though I put up a good time on Astro's Playroom for that little monkey speedrun on that one, like I went sicko mode on that. I just couldn't recreate it here. And once again, it's because it's a bit, like the monkey hands are a bit unpredictable. Even if you're doing the motions exactly right, exaggerated, and going as fast as you can, sometimes like the hand will like not reach up to the right one, or the wrong hand will start to reach up, and it's like, why are you doing this? Like, I'm doing everything perfectly fine with my controller. And I started to get a bit frustrated, because I was making good time on a couple of them, but then I would always get messed up by the monkey in hand not doing what I wanted it to, or not going where I wanted to go, because it's just a bit inconsistent. It's not really made for speedrunning, in my opinion. And I probably could have posted a much better time, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I got both the characters, and I got a pretty good time, but not a great one. I'm kind of done with it, right? So even though the speedrunner levels have not been amazing, they're still at least fun to go through like once or twice, get the new characters, but I don't think I'll be returning to any of these in the near future. The characters you get, though, are pretty fun. You get Wesker from Resident Evil, which I think is a great addition to the Resident Evil roster they already have on there. And then the other character that you get is Cade 6 from Destiny, which, in all honesty, is a good representation, like a single representation from Destiny. Destiny was huge on PlayStation consoles, so I'm not pissed off that Cade 6 is in the game. But it is kind of unfortunate that, like, okay, we didn't get a Sweet Tooth representation, we didn't get Fat Princess, we didn't get whatever. There's a few other more niche games out there that didn't get represented in this game, and I kind of understand the reasoning for not putting like Fat Princess in there or something like that, because times have changed, and maybe you don't want like a kid asking like, what's with this fat princess? I don't know. Maybe that was the reason behind it. I do know through some people on YouTube who told me this, that the developers behind like Twisted Metal said that they preferred not to have the character in the game because they didn't want kids to ask their parents, well, who's this character? Where's he from? But then again, it's like as a parent, all you need to say is like, oh, it's from a game where you destroy cars and the characters are wild, are wacky. You don't have to go into detail like, oh, Sweet Tooth, he drives a ice cream truck and he's a demon and he kills people and he cuts their heads off with machetes. Like, you don't need to go into detail. So I think it still would have been nice to have a Twisted Metal character representation in here. I understand, I guess, why they don't, but it's once again like one of those things where it's like there are workarounds for this. Like, if you're a parent concerned about telling your kid like, oh, that's Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal, you don't have to really expand on it, or you don't have to like really say exactly what it is. You can still be like, oh, it's Sweet Tooth. He's an evil clown from a game where you shoot, you battle with cars. It's like a demolition derby. Right there, that explains everything the kid needs to know, and maybe in the future, and you can say like in the future you'll be able to play this series, but not right now, right? It's one of those kind of things. So maybe with the future DLC that's going to be coming to the game, we'll see like a Twisted Metal themed level, or maybe a Twisted Metal character in there. But the characters that they put into this like speedrunner sets is not like, I'm not pissed off about any of them. I think they're all good representation or good characters to put in there. The character from Heavenly Sword, all of the Helldiver characters, obviously Albert Wesker and Cade 6, like they're good representations for franchises that were big on PlayStation either in the past or in the present. But it is unfortunate to see that some franchises just didn't get on here for whatever reason, and it's not like a detrimental thing. Like, I'm not pissed. I know last week I said I would come on here and I would rage, but it's not something that I'm pissed about. I'm just a little bit disappointed that they didn't put some representation here. But like I said, we still have more. They're obviously going to be updating this game with more DLC or free DLC, so we'll see how that goes. Adamfall had a new trailer on PlayStation's YouTube channel. This is the game coming from Rebellion. It's going to be a bit of a different game than their Sniper Elite series. It's going to be a first-person, kind of like a crazy, different timeline for what happened after the events of World War II and stuff like that. There's a lot of sci-fi elements in there as well. They didn't really show anything off about the game. It was pretty much just a person walking around the forest or whatever and showing some visuals, which are nice visuals, to be honest. But they did say it was available to pre-order now. It's going to be releasing on March 27th, 2025. I think the main problem is like they haven't showed gameplay for it, so why are you asking for a pre-order? Like, they did show, I guess, a bit of gameplay when it was first revealed, but not enough to like really make people hyped about it, right? So I'm hoping that they do release a trailer where it's like more gameplay, maybe a section of a level or something like that. The nice thing is that this game is launching at a $60 price tag, so it's not a $70 game, which is nice. The basics for it is it's 1957. A nuclear fire happened that burned away a city, and now these are the events that are happening after it. You're in like a quarantine zone. You got to survive in the quarantine zone. There's a military faction, a crazed faction, etc., etc. There's also going to be a deluxe edition available for $80, or you can, if you like the game, you can improve to the deluxe edition for an extra $20 if you buy it separately. There will be a 3-day early access with the deluxe edition and 2 supply bundles. So there you go. They also said that it's going to have a story expansion in the future, so that will be included in the deluxe edition as well. So very nice. I'm excited to hear more about Atom Fall, and as of right now, it is available to pre-order if you're interested, and it's coming out on March 27th. A game called Songs of Silence is coming out. The trailer is on Songs of Silence's YouTube channel. This is a real-time / turn-based strategy kind of game on various systems. Essentially, it kind of reminded me of Totally Honest Battle Simulator or something like that, where you kind of like place the units on the field and then you meet your foe on the field, and you kind of have a base idea of what they're going to be doing, right? And then your troops kind of battle on their own. It seems like you can interact a little bit as like a god, kind of, if you will, where you can interact with enemies and boost, not enemies, but your soldiers, and like boost them and stuff like that. It does seem like a pretty fun concept. It is coming to Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, and GOG if you want to check that out on November 13th. The trailer kind of does a better justice where it kind of shows you. It kind of has like that watercolor kind of style for the graphics, which I think is nice. So if you want to check that out, like I said, it is available to see like a trailer. It's going to be available on Steam. There's probably some more information there as well. All right, if you don't recall, Batman Arkham Trilogy was released on the Switch, I think it was earlier this year, right? And they have officially released each game individually on the eShop now. So you can buy Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight separately if you so desire. The full package for the Arkham Trilogy, I think, was $60. You can buy each of them separately for $30 each, I'm pretty sure, or $25 each. So it kind of evens out there. I mean, maybe it's a bit of a better deal for the Arkham Trilogy, especially if it's on sale. Like, I think it was recently on sale for like $30, which I was very close to being like, well, I mean, it's the Arkham Trilogy. I think it'd be kind of fun to get the Arkham Trilogy, but I own the Arkham Trilogy and Origins on so many platforms. It's just it wouldn't be worth it for me to buy the trilogy again, even if it is for like $30. But yeah, you can now buy all of them separately on the Switch eShop if you so desire. These are all great games. I replayed Arkham Knight, and I was much higher on it than my original playthroughs of it. And obviously, Arkham Asylum and City are 2 very classic games, City being one of my favorite games of all time. So that kind of tells you how good that game is for me, personally. All right, here are some games that are leaving PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers this week. There are 18 in total. So on the 18th of November, you're going to be losing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas Definitive Edition, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Sims 4 City Living, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme vs. Maxi Boost On, Superliminal, Yuden Chronicles Rising, Klonoa Fantasy Revier Series, Teardown, Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, Kingdom Hearts 3, Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, Chorus, What Remains of Edith Finch, Overcooked 2, Blasphemous, and Moving Out. There's a couple of good games on here that I would definitely recommend checking out. Red Dead Redemption 2, obviously. Superliminal, Klonoa, the Fantasy Revier series. If you're a fan of Disney and fan of Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts would be a good one to check out. Chorus, I think Chorus is a really fun game. What Remains of Edith Finch is a very nice story game, kind of short if you want to check that out. Overcooked 2 is a good multiplayer game, very chaotic. Blasphemous is a good 2D. It was kind of one of the original like 2D hardcore kind of Souls-like games. It was very good. And Moving Out, it's not as good as the second game, but it's still pretty fun to play with friends. And here are 17 games coming to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers this coming week. So on November 19th, you'll be able to download and play these games. For the PlayStation Plus Extra tier, it's Grand Theft Auto 5, Dying Light 2, Like a Dragon Ishin, MotoGP 24, The Sims 4, Island Living, Digimon Survive, Overcooked, Stick Fight the Game, Clash, Artifacts of Chaos, Killer Frequency, Hungry Shark World, and Chivalry 2. Pretty good selection of games there. And for the premium tier games, Synapse for the PSVR 2, Blood Omen Legacy of Kain on PS1, Blood Omen 2 on PS2, Resistance Fall of Man on the PS3, and Resistance 2 on the PS3. And the Resistance games are only streaming only, which means you can only play them, kind of like Dino Crisis, if you have the premium service, which is very annoying. It's very interesting because Resistance is actually a series that has been dormant for quite a while. So it's nice to see these come back. It is unfortunate that they aren't going to be available for everyone to like purchase and play for like $10. Because I think in general Resistance was a good series. I just think that the third game, because of the controversy around how many updates it needed in the multiplayer, it kind of stained the series a little bit. But from what I know, because I haven't played these games, I do have them. I bought them from a friend pretty recently. I do know that the first two games are very highly talked about. And then the Legacy of Kain and Blood Omen 2, I don't know much about those. Synapse for the PSVR 2 is a VR roguelite, which is pretty fun, but it does get a bit annoying when you have to restart, especially because it's a VR game, and one run of the game takes like a couple hours. So it's like one of those things where it's like after that couple of hours is done, do I really want to go again? And I haven't actually gotten back to it since my initial play of the game, where I got almost to the end on my like third play of the game. So I don't know. It was a bit annoying. Spyro. Last week, almost the day of the release of my last podcast, the Spyro Reignited Trilogy came to Game Pass. So you can now play all three of the original games, the original trilogy, on Game Pass starting on November 12th. So obviously you can do it right now. There was a bunch of lead up to this with like Crash Bandicoot holding a sign saying like, "Hey, Spyro, I love you." And there was a couple of teases by Xbox themselves. And then finally they said, yep, you can play it. It was a shadow drop. So if you have not played the Reignited Trilogy, it is a good way to play the original games. Even though I love the original look of the PS1 and like how the graphics looked on those games. Obviously, if you want the best experience with them, you're going to do it this way. If you're an achievement hunter, it also has a pretty fun achievement list to go through as well. So definitely check this out. Spyro Reignited Trilogy, available now on Game Pass. And then finally, a new thing for the end of the podcast here. Nintendo Music has updated their app, adding some more songs to it. A lot of times, I don't really talk about Nintendo at the end of the podcast because there's like they add a couple of games here and there onto their services, but it's nothing like consistent like the Xbox and PlayStation. So here we go. Nintendo Music app has updated to add 30 tracks from Wii Sports. And here's the full track list. The title theme, the main menu, learning to play, tennis, player selection, tennis, winning shot, tennis, results, tennis, training, baseball, taking the field, baseball, results, baseball, training, bowling, start the game, bowling, the alley, bowling, results, bowling, training, golf course selection, golf, lay of the land, golf, results, golf, training, boxing, replay, boxing, results, boxing, training, victory theme, defeat theme, tie game theme, training, lesson selection, training results, training personal best, training earning a medal, Wii Fitness menu, and the Wii Fitness results. So I guess there was 2 Wii Fitness games at the end there, so it's not all Wii Sports, but it's fun to see them add some stuff onto this. Obviously, I haven't tried out the music app yet because I don't really listen to video game soundtracks when I'm on the road driving around for work. But it is nice to see the Wii Sports getting the representation here with a couple of Wii Fitness things on there as well. They did say that they will be adding Donkey Kong Country 2 to the soundtrack as well, so maybe next week we'll talk about that, or I'll talk to you about that. Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Let's move on to everyone's favorite part, the song of the day, or the song of the episode, where if you know the song's name and the game that it came from, let me know in the comments below, or in the Discord, in the Ferret 64 section of the Discord. If you guess them both right, I will give you either a congratulations and a heart on the YouTube version, or a super reaction in the Discord. If you comment on Spotify, I really can't do anything for you, but at least if you comment there, people will know, like, hey, this person got the name of the game and the song right. So let's go ahead and hear what today's song is right now. Okay, if you know the name of the song and the game that came from, let me know in the comments down below or the other places that I told you to. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I also run another podcast called Film Freaks with a Z, where we talk about movies. The latest episode is about Starship Troopers, which is available right now. Those come out every other week on Fridays. I also do football recaps, NFL football recaps every Thursday. Those usually come out, where I quickly recap the best games from the week on my separate channel, my second channel called Ferret Football. I also have a VODs channel for my Twitch streams called Yemmy the Ferret VODs. I stream on Twitch on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We're going to be starting the fan-selected Super Castlevania 4 on Monday. So if you want to swing by, check that out, see how we're doing. I've greatly appreciate that. Any other things, it's all at Yemmy the Ferret, whether it be on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, etc. I'm also on Threads and Blue Sky if you want to check me out on those places as well. I'll still be around on Twitter and stuff like that, but we'll see how it goes. The future of Twitter is not exactly clear at this moment. Personal opinions aside, the platform has seen better days in my opinion in terms of like the amount of bots there and the just how it's run in general. So I'm not trying to get into any controversial subjects on the video game podcast, but that is just my feelings about it right now. Like I said, I'll still be around on Twitter, so if you want to interact with it or talk to me on Twitter, I'll still be promoting stuff on Twitter. But I'll probably be on other platforms as well at the same time. So there you go. All right, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I am Yemmy the Ferret, and I'm out of here. So long.
The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by Yemmy the Ferret. Small sound clips used throughout the podcast were made by Yemmy the Ferret. The song in the intro and outro is Nightshade by Adhesive Wombat. The Ferret 64 logo was made by Player2P2. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions, video game related, are my own. Thank you for listening.